Today, Chicago is hosting a celebration of life for the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's being honored not only as a civil rights leader, but as a man who mentored and shaped generations of activists and politicians from around the country. Friends, family, and dignitaries, including former Presidents Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, are among those paying their respects. Jackson died last month at age 84 after battling a rare neurological disorder that mimics Parkinson's disease. Joining me now is NAACP President and CEO Derrick Johnson. Thank you so much for being here. First to you, what will you remember most about Jesse Jackson today?
Well, good morning. Reverend Jackson was an American leader. You can measure his impact over decades. You can also measure his impact not just in one specific area. He was not simply a civil rights leader, not simply a human rights leader, a worker rights leader. He represented so many facets of creating a space to make the American dream possible for so many individuals.
Look, of course, I bumped into him in many different places, usually in protests where he would show up, including in 2020 during the George Floyd protest, and he would seek people out. That you could see him seek out young people often and talk to them about why it's important to champion civil rights. Can you give us some sense of what the sayings that you will remember? All of us are going to remember "Keep Hope Alive," but some of the things he said that have really stuck generation after generation.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is the '88 speech when he talked about our patch isn't big enough, and that if the individual patches, whether it is worker rights or advocating for farmers in Iowa or women's rights, if we put our patches together, we can make a quilt, a mosaic. Personally, he was important to me with sage advice. I can recall when I took this position some 8 years ago, he reached out and we sat down, had a great conversation, and he provided much insight on things I should be aware of and things I should consider in my leadership role.
Give us some sense today of what you're expecting and what you hope that other people remember about him and what you hope about his legacy that is continued.
But that he was much broader than people were seeking to project. You know, he was a global leader as well. He was on the forefront of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. He negotiated with foreign nations to release hostages. He was in the middle of a campaign where he realized that the rights of farmers in white America was the same as the needs of black Americans. He began to pull things together under the Rainbow Coalition. He was someone that was much more dynamic and diverse than what people give him credit for, because he cared about this nation. He wanted to see the Constitution to fulfill its promise, and he wanted to make sure he uses his voice in that pursuit.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about, you know, as in his later years, whether he thought that quilt that he loved of people, the Rainbow Coalition, the thing that makes America America, was starting to unravel a bit, or did he still very much feel like we were progressing?
Well, he thought both that we had lost traction, but we were also progression. He understood that growing up in the 60s, what we had, the progress made was great. He was a part of a lot of the movements in the 70s and creating opportunities for the business class, not only here in Chicago, but across the country. He registered more voters in 1980 than anyone else for that entire decade. He was on the forefront of so much in the 90s. And when you turn the corner to 2000, he created the wind behind President Obama's sail so he could become president. We're talking about someone who's seen so much. So he understood that progress was never in a straight line. It moves back and forward, but we always had to press forward to ensure the commitments of this nation will be met, that all individuals will be treated with human dignity and equal protection will be afforded to every citizen.
You know, he had this neurological disease, this rare disorder that mimics Parkinson's disease, and yet, how do you explain how he still showed up at protests and moved around the country wherever he felt he was needed?
You know, it was amazing. The George Floyd protest, and there's a picture of him and I in the lobby, because he refused to sit idly by. He wanted to lend whatever he could, whether it was advice or his presence, his voice, or his insight. He never quit trying to be a part of the movement because he was the movement, and for so many people in so many ways. His legacy will live on for decades to come.
Yeah, you know, he at one point got the key to the city of Chicago, wasn't born there, was born in South Carolina, but people loved him just the same there and around the country. Thank you so much, Derrick Johnson, for sharing your times with Jesse Jackson. We will be watching his homegoing.